Let's Talk, an initiative of the African Center for Ideas program through Jade Communications. This edition is part of a series of conversations on Kenya's general election, August 2022. Our focus will be on institutionalizing political transitions, a reality or an illusion. I'm John Sibi Okumu, and my guest is Javas Bigambo, a lawyer and expert on governance issues. Welcome, Javas, if I may.
Thank you, John.
Javas, I'm going to unpack my own introduction to you and ask you why we should be talking about institutions and institutionalization as being a reality or an illusion 60 plus years after independence.
John, I think it is very important for us to have a good, strong culture within our democratic practice that is respected by everybody, by the electorate, respected by politicians, and respected especially by how politicians interpret and appreciate the outcome of elections. We come from a very disturbing tradition within our body politic because we have politicians who've got bad manners in how they handle elections, they handle campaigns, and how they refuse to appreciate most of the time the outcome of elections. When you look at the skirmishes in electioneering periods, for example, in 1992, 1997, 2007, the darkest time in our political history, you realize that the bad manners, the bad character of politicians, failing to respect the rules of the game, failing to be enmeshed in good political culture, good values of governance, and refusing to respect the will of the people after the elections. It is what has led to these bad manners that can be seen through the failure to have politics respected, not seen merely as a game, but as a process that brings to the fore good leaders or leaders who make determination of or create laws and policies that affect how the country is governed and the lives of the people.
Thank you for that elaborate answer. We're going to unpack it even further. What I'd like to ask you at this point, Javas, is the blame game seems to be directed towards these people, horrible, bad-mannered people called politicians, and then the is the people. So why that order of responsibility? Why have we, as an electorate, been unable to choose good leaders?
We have always chosen leaders.
I said good.
And the thing is that the electorate always presumes to be making the right decision, choosing the right leaders or good leaders by way of assessing them during the campaigns. Trouble is that politicians themselves present themselves as good to the electorate during campaigns. The moment they get into office, we see a manifestation of a character contrary to how that was presented to the electorate during the campaigns.
Right, I'm going to cut you short a wee bit because I'm going to ask, if you, Javas, wanted to become a politician, if you have an ambition, if you have an aim, surely there must be an end game where you have certain expectations. If I become a doctor or a surgeon, I'm going to take 12 years learning how to put people's bodies back together again. So when the politician, because you're referring to the politician. When Kenyan politicians decide to go into politics, what are their expectations? That they're going to be corrupt, grow rich, build big houses? Is that it's a job description? I better quit being a broadcaster and become a politician because there are more gains?
It is a sad fact that politicians in Kenya consider politics not as a profession that should actually be respected for what it is. They look at it as an opportunity for enrichment, for doing business, and
what's wrong with that? You're sort of saying, oh my God, I want to be rich, I want to do good business, what a horrible person I am. When there are other people doing exactly the same thing in business, who are perhaps creating guineas, and they're guinea millionaires. There are people rearing chickens, and they're chicken millionaires. You don't want political millionaires.
Doing business is not bad. Anybody should and can do business. The problem is using their office to do business contrary to established norms, contrary to provisions of the law, and the gains that they make out of this.
You're the political scientist, Javas. You remember the time that I possibly lived through and you studied in class, where we are the ones who made it possible for the politician to combine politics and business. There was a time in our political dispensation when that was impossible, but we voted it in, that you can still be the MP for whatever and run a bus company here. That was an institution that was created by Kenyans, and we've stuck with it.
You see, politics and public service through political office, we know it to be a social contract. It's about delivering services to the people. That is primary. The aspect of doing business is not primary, should not be primary, should not be the goal of seeking public office. When politicians make it a primary interest to do business, to enrich themselves at the expense of service delivery, to deliver on their mandate that they have, to deliver on the promises, the commitments they made through their manifestos during campaigns, then it is something to be frowned upon.
Let me give you an image. If I was the MP of my particular area,
yes,
and I know that you, wherever you live, have built a huge mansion, and you're coming to visit me, and all I have where I come from is a mud hut with a mabati roof, and you're coming to visit, but your mansion in Karen or Muthaiga has got, sort of lions outside the gate. Why don't you think that I should aspire to a similar welcome? And are you going to give me respect if I'm not as rich as you are? Because I see this perpetual condemnation of the politician as if, having set the instruments to make themselves rich, they're worse than the policeman who asks me for a bribe.
A good life.
I can't see it.
You see, a good life is everybody's desire. And that's expected, that everybody always wants to have a good life for themselves and their families. The problem is that in Kenya, we seem to glorify riches. And here, the pursuit of riches, regardless of the manner in which those riches are acquired, is what is leading to so much corruption in government today. And I think when we do a comparative analysis of how we conduct our politics here in Kenya, how it's done elsewhere in Africa, how it's done elsewhere in the world, for example, whether it's continental Europe or the Americas, we see that when leaders have so much interest in public service and being contented with whatever is available to them through the perks that they have while in office, it leads these leaders to appreciate that being in office is not about enrichment of the self. It is about serving the people. But here, we think that, and we associate political life, especially successful politicians, with larger than life living. They want to have big cars and mansions. If at all it is out of private enterprise and you living that way, not merely because of the office you hold, then that would be a very different thing. When you look at politicians who leave office by way of being voted out by the people, they never most of the time continue living large. So that demonstrates that the kind of life they were leading while in office, it is because of the access to opportunities, money that's most of the time acquired corruptibly, that's leading or that led them to live larger than life. And
I'm going to accept that analysis as being sound, but let's stick to our topic, which is the forthcoming general election. You're the political scientist, you're the analyst, you've just told them this is why, you've told us rather, why people do this, that, and the other. What are your solutions for changing that dispensation? The analysis of the symptoms is sound. I'm not going to argue with that. I try to come back on it, but okay, that's what's happening. How do we change it?
It's not going to be easy because you've got various limitations and challenges here in Kenya. First, the electorate most of the time does not rationalize the commitments made by politicians or by candidates. Secondly, we do not have an electorate that is ready.
Okay, sorry, let's take you back. The electorate does not rationalize solution. I want analysis, solution, analysis, solution. Because I would put to you rather cynically maybe, that the analysis has been done since we became independent. You said 1992, 2007. So you, the political scientist, are continuing to write these very trenchant papers upon the state of the nation and what brings us to where we are. The frustration that the citizen has is it ever going to change in the long term, and is it going to change in the short term before August 2022?
It is not going to change, sadly. I am not pessimistic, but I must agree with the fact that because of the lack of awareness by the people about what actually they want and demanding that of politicians, especially when they're in office, that limitation, the unwillingness to demand the best from public office holders.
Okay, right. So I'm glad now that I'm listening to you carefully. You are shifting the blame and saying we deserve what we get as citizens. Is that a precise encapsulation of what you said?
Well,
for the time being, we deserve the leaders that we have and the manner in which they lead us.
We deserve. In fact, the kind of punishment that we go through of bad governance, it is because we put these leaders in office. We trusted them and entrusted such opportunities to them to serve the people. Sadly, the Kenyan politician has learned the thinking of the Kenyan voter. They know very well that it is easy to please the Kenyan voter by making promises that you can't follow through. It is easy to make or to use flowery language during the campaigns and be inaccessible once you're in office. And sadly, the people who are the voters have not decided to be firm, to be thorough, to follow through the commitments that politicians made. In fact, after elections, if we were to look at how politics is played here in Kenya, there are hardly many voters or many citizens in this country at the constituency level or at the ward level or even nationally who are willing to start asking hard questions of politicians and going line by line of the manifestos that they used or they delivered during the campaign period.
So you're suggesting a sort of audit of
it is important.
Of promises.
It's very important to do an audit.
Right.
But are the politicians ready, available, and willing to be audited? It's not at their pleasure that they should be audited. It must be a demand by the people. But trouble is that when you look
Javas,
at...
I'm with you. We have to... you've made your point, and I take your point. But go back to Wanjiku, the man in the thing. You're saying this particular government, I'm not for or against this. They promised us stadia. They promised us computers for every child. August 2022, we shouldn't return anybody from the Jubilee government. Solution? I'm following you. They didn't deliver. We've done the audit. They didn't deliver. Get rid of them.
We have got a long way to go. First,
But I said get rid of them.
well, I think that's the best thing to do. You haven't delivered, move over.
Okay, fine. Okay, so that's Javas talking.
Yes.
I'm saying that's Javas. People should bounce off our conversation and see what they think. But now I would like to move on to other things. If we're talking to the electorate and civic education, when we hear that there is a deep state, that there is state capture, these words sort of first came into our lexicon from South Africa with their president. Deep state, people, whatever, they're our brothers and we're not going to be critical. But is there a deep state? Is there state capture in Kenya? And what are these things for the person viewing? What is your definition of deep state and state capture?
Well, first, yes, there is deep state. But
What is
this, it is amorphous. It is not structured. Of course, we have to understand deep state for what it is. It is the existence of a few individuals, powerful, whether in government or out of government, could be some of these business elites who sponsored most of a presidential candidate into office, financed their campaigns, and because of that, the president or a president, while in office, wants to return the favor, which means then that they have to give an opportunity to certain businessmen and women to do business, to be contractors or suppliers.
Understood.
Yes. So trouble is that
time.
Payback
time.
The trouble is that what is sad is that now this amorphous team gets to control the institutions of governance, the powerful institutions or offices, for their own benefit.
Understood. What is state capture?
State capture then here is having institutions of governance. For example, it could be the presidency, it could be parastatals, that are under a firm grip or control by certain individuals, using those institutions to benefit themselves. And it means then that these institutions do not serve or deliver on their mandate for the benefit and the pleasure of the people, but for the benefit and pleasure of the selected few who are at the controls.
Right. Explanation, please. We're seeking to institutionalize, make it perpetual, make it perennial. In our dispensation now, we have a supposed disagreement between the president and his vice president. The Constitution, according to my notes, has very wonderful transition articles for what should happen if something happens to the president, but we don't seem to have similar transition articles as to what should happen if we must get, well, I didn't say get rid of, there is a need to replace the vice president.
Well,
because that's what we're hearing. The Kenyans, I'm trying to say, Javas, we are fed daily on a press. We'll talk about the role of the media, where now I believe you have to pay 60 shillings to buy a newspaper. So if you have the money, you can have a choice of 3 major newspapers and pay 60 shillings and quote unquote receive the news. So this is the perennial narrative that's being heard. And you're saying, you talked about an electorate which rationalizes, which is able to read, which is able to comprehend. And we want to institutionalize this idea of transition. That is our topic. Why should we have this topic about whether Ruto and Kenyatta are at loggerheads and one should go and one should stay? Explain it to me, the guy who's just bought the newspaper.
First, let's call every sin by its name. Whatever is happening between the president and the deputy president is bad for our country, is bad for governance. In fact, it is bringing out the worst in them, the worst in our leadership. It is improper that two offices created by the Constitution have got gentlemen or men occupying them who cannot see eye to eye and are not willing to work together. Article 141 of the Constitution provides for mechanisms, for example, for transition.
Of the president, I made that clear in my researches.
Yes.
It doesn't do the same, because they're sort of saying, we've had enough of this guy. We should get rid of him by tomorrow. What, you're the constitutionalist. Which is the article in the Constitution which says you can't do that? The dear gentleman or man, as you wish to call him, has every right to be there until August 2022.
And that position is protected.
Right.
For instance, in retrospect, when we look back during the ICC process, when President Kenyatta had to appear in person as Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta
right.
at The Hague, he handed over power to his deputy.
Right.
The Constitution provides such mechanism
that
the deputy president holds forth when the president is...
Javas,
yes.
I agree with you, where the idea of the August 20, we're trying to avoid a repeat of the machinations of the past. I am taking it that every viewer or other viewer is going to do their research and find out what happened.
Yes.
What should we do moving forward? I'm saying that your analysis at this point is stagnant, fixed in time. Extrapolate, go forward.
First, we need to have leaders in this country who respect the law. For instance, the Constitution provides clearly that the deputy president is the principal assistant of the president. And there is no other responsibility except that which is delegated by the president. The president, therefore, needs to delegate, needs to respect the holder of the office of deputy. Moving forward, I think we need to have a president and deputy president, one, who respect the law, two, who are ready to work guided by the law for the benefit of the country. The politics today between President Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto is not serving the interests of the people, but their own political interests. Today, the deputy president is on the campaign trail, has hit the road campaigning to be president, and does not have the modesty of being calm and serving as the deputy or the assistant, principal assistant to the president.
Right.
The president himself
does
not respect the office of deputy president by delegating responsibilities or duties as the Constitution provides that he should.
Right. Okay. So that's a thought that we might, as an electorate, revisit. I'm trying to lead you on several topics, and only so many minutes to go through them. This idea of the relationship between the executive, the judiciary, the various arms of government, and the idea that we have punitive budgets for anybody who dares to criticize the executive. The judges, don't give them any money. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, don't give them any money. In terms of institutionalization, what can we do to make sure that people who deserve the money get the money?
Well, we should first stop playing politics with constitutional bodies. For instance, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, or the judiciary, which is one of the three arms of government. When they are doing their work as provided for in law, then the best thing to do is to give them the finances that they need to advance their work. And here, of course, we know as it is today, it is the responsibility of Parliament to pass budgets for all government bodies. It's sad that today Parliament playing politics gets to cut the budget of institutions that are doing their work properly. For example, the judiciary. When, for example, the judiciary gives a proposal of a certain amount that they need to work in the next, within the next financial year, Parliament should not, Parliament should not slash that budget without appreciating.
Yes, but who is going to oblige action plan? We have a meeting, and between now and the next meeting we're going to action. We know, we've read the papers, we've bought our 60 bob papers, and we're saying so many people need so many judges, and the word comes back that Judge A, Judge B is not fit, and we're going to again, institutionalization. These institutions, if I was talking to a Belgian political scientist or a Swedish political scientist, they would say that we have mechanisms within our constitution to cope. Why is ours failing us?
Well, first, because we don't respect the constitution and the laws that are there. The other thing is that we have not empowered other bodies. For instance, the Office of the Control of Budget. It is a very significant office. If at all it looks through all the budgetary provisions and expenditure by even county governments, authorizes withdrawal of money, then why is it that we cannot have the Office of the Control of Budget to be the center of collection of budgetary proposals by all government institutions? And if Parliament has got an issue, for instance, with the budget that, say, for the thinking that I have, they provided for or delivered to Parliament by the Control of Budget, then the Control of Budget should appear and defend. Why is it that these proposals are there? Because today, as it is all these government institutions that forward their budgetary proposals. Treasury delivers this to Parliament. Parliament then decides how they want to slash. And of course, that responsibility is on Parliament constitutionally. But the sad thing is that the extent to which Parliament plays politics with the work of constitutional bodies or institutions, it is what is in bad taste. And moving forward, I think, we need to start asking Parliament, much as sadly we don't have any mechanism, that Parliament should not be constricting the operations of constitutional bodies. For instance, today, because of the report and the research and the report that were done by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Parliament today has had the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights underfoot, under-budgeted. And because of that, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights today remains merely like a research institution. They're not able to do and deliver their mandate properly as constitutionally provided. And this is because of Parliament playing politics with these bodies.
Agreed. Do let me hear your views on a few more topics before our time is through. ODA, OCK, political parties change. They're changing by the day. We've got the same players regurgitating themselves under different banners. So now we have Mudavadi, Kalonzo trying to whatever. We have another group or whatever. What are our institutions going to do this? Can't we institutionalize the fact that if you call yourself a member of the red team, 5 years later you can't call yourself a member of the blue team? Is that too clever?
It would be a good thing to have that. But you see,
there are too many political parties, and they're just shifting alliances. They're not shifting ideologies. They're not shifting political manifestos and agenda. It's just me and you as my chum. We're going against those folk over there.
You see,
what can we do? I'm sorry if I'm being wishy-washy. Our key word was to institutionalize, which, if we're trying to explain it to a young child, is to make sure that this is a rule that will never break. Mum and Dad say be home by 10 o'clock is the latest you can stay out before we send the cops to fetch you. So what are we as a nation going to do to stop people doing the same thing over and over again? You'll be writing another analysis in 2022 saying about the parties. I read the analysis that you gave. I've read it by way of preparation. You'll just add another chapter to it.
Article 38 of the Constitution bestows or secures political rights for every Kenyan citizen. And by way of that article, any citizen has got a right to participate in political activities or political party engagements, to form a political party. But now we are using that right in a bad way. Of course, when you look at even the reports that were in the media the other day about the fears of the Jubilee Secretary General that he was going to be kicked out, or he fears that he'll be kicked out because certain politicians want to benefit with the pass of Jubilee during the political primaries because people are going to pay lots of money through nomination fees. Then you realize that political parties then are used as baskets for collection of money for the gain of the party owners. Today, political parties, we know them to be merely vehicles of convenience for politicians. The founders of political parties do not respect these political parties as institutions that enable the progress of our democracy in Kenya. They use them as private property. For instance, ODM is the party of Raila Odinga. When Jimmy Wanjigi declared his interest to contest the presidency through ODM, it was exciting at first to the members of the party. But then when some of them realized that he's serious about that interest, and by way of his talk, some are fearing that he could be challenging or posing as a threat as well to the party leader, Raila Odinga, already they're frowning upon him. We've had statements of that nature even from Governor of Kakamega, Wycliffe Oparanya, who is the deputy party leader, one of the deputy party leaders of ODM.
Javas,
Because-
maybe I haven't been
because-
maybe I haven't been reading my papers too keenly. Do forgive me. But at this stage, isn't it true that the ex-prime minister hasn't actually declared his intention to run as we speak?
Well, you see, he
hasn't.
has not declared officially. But when he says, for instance, that in my government, we will have opportunities for the youth.
So,
we will give
semantics.
money.
Everybody will get 6,000 bob a month.
Exactly.
It's all going to be
Then
wonderful.
how can he be in charge of a government and make these promises actually if he's not running and he does not intend to contest the presidency?
Keyword institutionalization.
Yes.
Keyword institutionalization.
So-
Forgive the school teacher in me. Can you say we cannot allow somebody to suggest that he'll be head prefect unless he's actually said, I'm in the running of everybody in Jogo House or Uhuru House? Why are we allowing this to happen? Why, because again, you and experts on political governance, how can you call this out as being wrong and still survive to fight another day?
I think we are highly maladjusted as a people in Kenya. So much maladjusted that we condone and we're at home and at peace with the bad character of politicians. If at all, even the Constitution secures the place of political parties and we've got enabling legislation, the Political Parties Act, these have been codified. Trouble is that we are not giving the respect due to these institutions. And that's why we're saying that even party leaders themselves, the party founders, do not respect the very parties that they founded. They use them to advance selective or personal political interests. Sadly then, you find that if you disagree with a certain political leader or the party leader, there is a snowball's chance in hell that actually you'll have the nomination certificate given to you or a fair chance to contest through that party.
Right. Sorry. I must get this in before our time is through. I must get it out of my system. This idea that we've trundled out the same leaders over a 30-year period. If we talk names like Odinga, Mudavadi, Musyoka, Wetangula, these are the same people that we're offering to an electorate which we say is a majority dominated by the young. Now, this topic has been addressed before. Why should it be necessary to have the same people in different guises reappear and our institutions allow it to happen? If we're going to be tribal, let's just try and fix that little thing. If Wetangula and Mudavadi are, let us say, of the same ethnic group, in the last 30 years, haven't they had the time to make some kind of union and say, you matey, as we go looking for the vote, for we can choose one of us? Are we so duped as a society that we can't say that this is about the people? It's about individuals.
Some of these politicians think that they are God's gift to Kenya. And that is why...
But what do the Kenyans think? Because you're maligning my dear politicians all the time.
No, sadly...
I dare... This is a polite forum. I'm saying you're blaming the wrong person. Maybe I want you to, before we come to my final questions, maybe the conclusion is that the Kenyan electorate, the Kenyan people, should go back and do some homework about whom they're going to elect in August 2022. Shall we give them that job?
The people perhaps want. Kenyans are tired by the manner in which certain politicians have stayed on the scene for too long. But because of tribalism and the tribal card that is continually played by the politicians and by the people themselves, using ethnicity as the stepping stone, as the springboard for access to office, then it makes our politics merely a game. For instance, pick, say, leader Kalonzo Musyoka. He's from Ukambani. If any other person from Ukambani wants to contest the presidency through Wiper, that is a party that was founded by Kalonzo Musyoka, really, he will be fought. And even the Kamba people will say that you are spoiling for one of our own. They are looking at it through the tribal lenses. They're not looking at it as an opportunity for another leader.
But the tribal, Kivuta Kibwana has got his degrees and professorships and everything else, and is a good governor. So that particular analysis doesn't quite hold, because there are two Kambas there who are intellectually and professorially well placed.
Yes, but not in the same party.
Right.
That's why I'm saying that now political parties have been personalized and they are run as private business. The other thing is that today, any political party, for instance, Wiper itself, because the founder and the leader of that party is from Ukambani, that party is strong in Ukambani and less strong elsewhere.
Right.
ODM, for instance, is strong in Nyanza because the leader and the founder is from there. So I think political parties being sustained by ethnic drive is a bad thing.
An exhaustive conversation, and I wish we had more time, because as a political scientist, I wish I could draw you on more issues. Mm-hmm. But I will draw to a close by asking you two things. Let's put it this way, will Kenyans be more politically mature in August 2022, in 10 months' time? Are we basically moving forward, becoming more informed, even if it's not at a pace where others would like us to be? And the other prong attached to that is that we as Kenyans, within the continental family of Africa, what is going to be our big moment in terms of the next elections to give a lesson on viable and concrete institutions?
The progress of maturity in Kenya among politicians and among the people is impressive, very impressive. Looking at every general election, you realize that Kenyans become more mature, they respect the politics and the drive that they have. And I expect that, having learned from the disgraceful period of 2007, Kenyans appreciate that politics should not be about killing one another or a do or die. So I think Kenyans will be more mature in 2022 general election, and I expect more civil character by Kenyans and by the politicians.
And what might they do for their brothers and sisters on the whole continent, by way of example?
Well, because of, for instance, the nullification of the flawed presidential election in 2017, we have seen other countries seeing that it's possible for an election of president to be challenged and overturned if at all it did not meet constitutional muster. So other countries are learning from Kenya. The politics of Kenya and the governance and the institutions that are in Kenya, it is a very good lesson for very many countries, whether it's Uganda, whether it's Zambia, whether it's Malawi. So very many countries are learning and they're able to learn from Kenya. So Kenya is exporting some good governance values across the continent.
Javas, we have to end there. Constraints of time. Thank you, Javas Bigambo, for a conversation that I wanted more of and should have more of, because there is more in that package to unpack. And thank you for watching or listening to this conversation on Pass the Mic, Let's Talk, an initiative of the Africa Center for Ideas program through Jade Communications. Till next time.